Hello and welcome back to the Flying Cat Marketing Interview Series. I'm Iva Cifuentes, and today I'm speaking to Joe Sullivan, who is the founder of Guerrilla 76, a content marketing agency for manufacturing companies. And we're talking about a subject that I really like today, which is connecting the marketers with the C-levels and the subject matter experts and actually extracting this information from their brains into the marketing material. So I think this is really valuable because this is the only way really to create content that is relevant, super valuable, original, and useful for the readers, which is why we're doing this whole content marketing thing anyway, right? Okay, so I'm just gonna dive right into it because I'm really excited about this episode. If you did enjoy it, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, share it with your friends and colleagues, give it all the love, and I'll see you in there. Ciao. Hello and welcome to the Flying Cat Marketing Interview Series. Today I have Joe Sullivan, who's the founder of Guerrilla 76, which is a marketing agency for industrial companies. And we've been chatting a little bit on LinkedIn. We've known each other, I guess, for a couple months now, just virtually. So I'm really excited to be able to talk to you in person today. And thanks for joining me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Glad to be on the show.
Cool. So why don't you introduce Guerrilla Marketing, Guerrilla 76 a little bit, and what your guys' focus is and what your superpower is.
Sure. So we are an 18-person marketing agency. We're based in St. Louis, Missouri. And we've been in business since 2006, more of a full-time operation since 2008. So it's been a good while now, but my business partner, John, and I founded the agency then, and sort of we're doing marketing work for anybody who'd write us a check, and whether it was the dentist down the street or the restaurant around the corner. And took a few years before we kind of honed our focus and started working with some B2B construction companies, then got really into the manufacturing sector. And I'd say for the last 7 or 8 years or so, it's been, we sort of have immersed ourselves in the manufacturing sector and serving sort of mid-sized B2B manufacturers. So that's us in a nutshell.
Amazing. What I'm really interested about a lot of the content that you post on LinkedIn and also on your blog, which I would like to talk about today, is having to interview subject matter experts and the process around that, and why content marketers and companies need to hone in on the subject matter experts that they either have on their team or that they can get access to. So you have these articles that are like, why we insist on interviewing your experts, why the brains of your experts are the most valuable asset that you have, or why your marketing needs a direct line to your C-levels. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what that process looks like?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've been kind of believers in content marketing for as long as I can remember. We've been writing our blog for probably 10 plus years now. I wouldn't go back and read anything we wrote more than 3 years ago because it probably wasn't very good. But I think over the course of the last few years, we really kind of found our voice there, and we've been helping our clients find theirs for a number of years. And really what it comes down to is this: if it's this idea that a majority of companies out there, and I see it in particular in my space where we're working with family-owned businesses that are second or third generation and have kind of more sales focused. They haven't, to them, marketing has meant trade shows and print ads and blasting this megaphone in your prospects' ears about how great you are and all the things they should buy from you. What we have found is that, companies need to start making this shift from talking about themselves to talking about their customers' pain points, how to address those things, focusing in on the things that your buyer actually cares about. Because nobody cares who you are or what you do. They care about what they need to accomplish in their jobs. And then maybe they'll listen to who you are and what you do if they believe that you understand their situation, you solve those types of problems before. And so that's really what this whole idea of content marketing is about, right? It's trying to solve problems, be a resource, sort of serve as the guide in the buying process of your potential customer. And so, yeah, everything we write about is really focused on helping that mid-sized manufacturer, figure out how to grow their businesses through marketing and sales. But in turn, we help our clients do the same. Who is their audience? What do those people care about? And how do we take what's in their brains? They're the experts, not us. They're the experts on what they do. We need to sort of extract what's in their brains and translate it into content that will resonate with their audience, help them get discovered by those people, help earn trust and attention, et cetera.
So what does that process look like? Because these subject matter experts are super busy. How do you get their buy-in to spend time with you to help create content?
Yeah, it can be challenging sometimes. And, it really starts by, I've found that it starts by getting buy-in at a high level at the company. If you can get the CEO or president or head of your department on board with this idea that some of their team's time has got to be spent, it has to be lent to the marketing department, because marketing needs their brains to get in front of the right people and deliver that message. I find things change when you can get that buy-in from up top. But the way we do it is we need to we always do a little education of our customers to help them understand why their engineers, why their salespeople, their account managers, the people who know the customers the best, we have to help them understand why that knowledge is so critical to marketing. Because we can't, I have 3 journalists on staff at Guerrilla that, they're experts in interviewing people and doing research and creating physical content, but they can't do that on their own. They can't just say, okay, I'm going to, we're working for this mid-sized manufacturer who makes this, complex part. We're going to write a bunch of stuff about that complex part. It's never going to happen. It would be garbage content. And so it's all the years of experience, the collective expertise of our customers that is going to be valuable to their audience. So we sort of act as the facilitators of this, knowledge extraction process, as we call it, taking what's in their brains and translating it into content. But you have to help them understand why they are the ones who are needed before they're willing to say, okay, I get it now. I'll sit down with you and talk for a half hour and let you interview me on this subject.
So for half an hour of talking, how much content comes out of that?
Sometimes a lot. I think they're like many things. It depends question, of course. But if you can get the right person in a room and you've done your due diligence preparing for the interview with that person, if you can come in asking great questions and helping that person understand you've done your homework on the subject. You're not coming in blind and asking questions about something you know nothing about. But you've done some research to set up a really productive interview. And you start pulling real insights out of them, 30, 40-minute conversation produce, a handful of articles. It could produce, like we're doing now, a piece of video content that could then be chopped up into small video clips. It could be transcribed and you publish bits and pieces of that interview. You could use audio clips and use them on LinkedIn or in sales prospecting emails. And there's so much that can come out of that. So we've become really big fans of, when we can, get in a room with the expert, put a camera on them, and now all of a sudden you've got, you have video, you have audio, you have this stuff that you can use to write physical content. So the short answer is a lot can come out of a 30-minute conversation.
Yeah, I love it. And how many people are involved in this process?
So, us as an agency, it's a little different than, say, if somebody's doing it as an internal marketer at their company. I think both ways can work. But when we do it, our work is primarily driven by a strategist, somebody who comes from a background of content marketing and search engine optimization, and they sort of understand sort of mesh the business strategy with the marketing and sales strategy and pull all those things together. So a lot of our work is driven by that person. Then we pull in our writers, who really at this point have sort of evolved into content strategists. And they're the ones who have that journalism background. They went to school for journalism. 2 of our people worked in magazines or newspapers prior to working at Guerrilla, so they know how to take something they know nothing about and go do research and interview somebody and do additional research. But I think those are the 2 main people: somebody who understands the business strategy and where this piece of content you're trying to create fits into the mix, and then somebody who can facilitate that knowledge extraction process and physically produce it.
So you have the strategist first get to know the customer, plan the strategy in terms of topics and keywords, and then you interview the expert?
Yeah. So kind of to break it down a little bit, the way we've sort of evolved our way of working, and this is something you could apply internally at your own business if you're, not an agency, but a company trying to produce content. We start with it's intensive, but we did one last week. We call it a positioning and content strategy workshop, and we do it over the course of 8 hours with a lunch break. And it's intense, but we get all, the reason we do it in one day is because we plan it ahead of time and get all the right people in one room, or, in 20 locations on a big Zoom meeting, as it was last week, given the circumstances out there. But what we do is we start with focusing on, with this, we went into this meeting saying, all right, these are the two audiences you've agreed that are going to be sort of the ones you're pursuing from a marketing and sales standpoint over, say, the next 6 months. Let's do a deep dive on these two different audiences. Let's figure out, what are the characteristics of these buyers at a company level. So sort of painting the picture of that ideal customer profile or ideal account profile. And then inside of those organizations, who are the buying process influencers or buyer personas, the people who are going to influence the buying process, which for our clients tend to be a combination of engineers, plant managers, procurement folks, C-suite. So we start there, and then we say, now, what are all the things that these most important personas care about? What are the triggers that lead them into the buying process? What are the issues those people are experiencing in their jobs? What are the challenges they're facing and the things they're trying to achieve? What are the questions they ask about all this stuff? And that becomes the foundation of a content strategy. That's where your content comes from. If you can understand what the individual buying process influencers care about, the content strategy becomes really easy. You just say, all right, now let's figure out what things we could physically create using our expertise that match up with all those things the customer cares about. So now you paint the picture of the content strategy, and you say, now which of these, we probably generated 50 ideas during that 8-hour meeting last week. Now we prioritize them and say, what are going to be the most effective ones that we can use, and what medium do we want to use to produce them? Video, audio, written content, white papers, guest articles on third-party sources, and who are the subject matter experts inside your company whose expertise we need to sort of tap into to make those things. And then you start making things.
Do you spend any time talking to the customer yourself, or do you get all the information about the avatar from the sales and customer success?
And so to clarify your question, do you mean, do we talk to our customers?
Yes.
Or
yes.
Yeah. Okay. When we can, we do. And that can be another great way to produce content. The people we're trying to help our customers reach are, the ones who are actually experiencing those pains. Sometimes we find that our clients make wrong assumptions about what their customers actually care about. So if we can help them go directly to the source and sometimes serve as, say, a third party that gets a little bit more of an objective, honest answer, those interviews can be really valuable. So now I think, the other way to do it is if we could get our customers directly interviewing their people and turning a camera on, essentially what you and I are doing here, inviting your potential customer into your own content creation process is super powerful. And it's a trend you're seeing right now, and for good reason. There's a book called Content-Based Networking that was published recently by James Carberry, who runs an agency in Florida called Sweetfish Media. And they're like the podcast agency out there, but great book that's all about that. It's how do you invite your potential customers into the process of creating your own content through video interviews, through a podcast, through text-based interviews, whatever it is, because they're the ones who have the insights. And then all of a sudden you're starting relationships with those people that you might not have otherwise had by putting the spotlight on them. Absolutely.
That's awesome. I love it when you do invite other people. And that's one of the best ways also to network, because you're getting valuable information from your direct customer directly from their mouths, and then they know who you are. And it's a great way to get in touch with them because you're not trying to sell to them. You're not pitching anything. You're just saying, I want to put you in the spotlight. I want to feature you. So absolutely. I do love that. Let's go back to this 8-hour workshop that you were talking about that you did last week. What does that look like? What happens during that workshop?
Yeah, so we try to get the people from the companies we work with, and just for context, our clients tend to be like 20 million to $100 million manufacturers, and so they're not massive enterprise organizations. They're not mom and pop shops. They're kind of that mid-size B2B company. And the people we always sort of require to participate in this are the CEO or president of the company, B, the VP of sales, C, the head of marketing, whoever that person is, a marketing director, CMO, and then a few key salespeople or account managers, the people who interface with the customer directly, could be customer success, as you mentioned earlier, or and then maybe a few key technical professionals like engineers or plant managers, the people who are sort of on the floor and understand the technical things that the customer cares about. So we get all of them present. We give them a little bit of a briefing heading into the session, so they understand what exactly we're going to be doing. But like I said earlier, we start by creating focus, dialing in on who the company is, that the companies are they're trying to reach at a company level, who the buying process influencers are. And we spend most of our time talking about those buying triggers that those people experience and the pains and common questions they have. That becomes, it's amazing to think all of that could take 8 hours, but when you get the right people in a room, we're just sitting there facilitating a conversation among them. And this person says something, all of a sudden it spurs an idea over here. And this person says, yeah, I had that, I saw that with one of our customers last week. And then 15 minutes later, we had this deep dive on this really common problem that all their customers have. So, and if you hit record on those meetings, you come back to that stuff later and figure out how to produce content ideas out of all of it.
So sometimes these companies can have 20 people in the meeting, right? How can you organize, especially how many people are, you said there's 18 people on your team, but I guess not all 18 people are present at that meeting, right?
Right.
So how do you organize that meeting? Is it just, okay, let's start having a conversation and it's going to last 8 hours? Or what kind of structure, how do you get from starting a conversation to, okay, these are going to be our ideas?
Sure. Yeah. So this is sort of part of a bigger process that we use for our clients. And so, up to this point, we've already done one workshop with that core team that was more about overarching marketing strategy. We do that prior to having any sort of ongoing long-term engagement. So the meeting you and I were just talking about here is sort of the step one in the client hiring us to implement the bigger picture plan. They've said, all right, we've been paid to create a plan for them. They've said, all right, we want to hire you to implement the plan. Our first step is this positioning and content strategy workshop. So sometimes it takes, aligning all these schedules. We're often booking this thing a month out and slotting a day in. But it's planned ahead. It's structured. We sort of set them up for what that needs to look like. From our team, there's usually 3 or 4 people, the writer, the strategist. I join myself as more of a senior strategist type. Our client service person or account coordinator. And then on their end, it tends to be anywhere from, 6 to 10 people's typical. This one I did last week was the biggest one we've ever had, where they literally wanted to loop in like 15 plus people, which I think is great as long as they're the right people and everybody's contributing. So I don't know if I'm answering your question or not there, but it's...
Yeah, I think so. It's the initial step. And then you extract all of the information about the customer. But is that also...
That sort of is what happens next. This first workshop is about formulating all the ideas, all the things that we could produce content around, and tying those to those things the customer cares about. And so what we do then is we leave for the next couple of weeks, and we start by organizing those ideas and saying, we're going to create these 8 pieces. These are the things we want to start with. Hey, client, who are your subject matter experts? And then what we do is we book what we call a knowledge extraction day. So for the client that we just did this for next week, well, we're booking their knowledge extraction day a couple weeks out, where in an ideal non-COVID-19 world, we'd be on site with them with a videographer, camera on them in the office. And we've got, at 9:00, this person is sitting in this chair here. At 9:45, this next person comes in. We've talked to them ahead of time. We know exactly what we're going to be interviewing them about. They've seen the questions ahead of time, so they've sort of been able to think through it a little bit. And we'll probably conduct 10 interviews in that day and have, 8 hours worth of video footage that we can then use for all these different purposes. So that's probably where you were going with this. How do you get from ideas to physically producing the content? That's kind of the next step. And this is sort of a new process for us, this knowledge extraction day that I've described. In the past, it's been, let's just book individual interviews with subject matter experts on their schedules as we can. We're trying to sort of front load the engagement by doing this sort of intensive content creation process so that we can go then. We can say, all right, now we've got this stuff. We're going to publish this on the site, use it for inbound purposes, wrap it around some keywords that make sense. We're going to build a list of the right people from the right companies and use this content in outbound emails. We're going to use paid media, maybe Facebook or LinkedIn, and target people with these job titles from these types of companies in these geographic regions, and use that content, amplify that content's reach through paid social. So that's the idea. If we can make all this great stuff up front, now you've got it ready to go for inbound, for outbound, for paid, and we can, use it to our advantage in so many ways.
So I've experienced that a lot of clients who are hiring content agencies, well, a lot of them do want to be involved and they're very excited about it. But there's also those ones that are like, well, I just don't want to think about this. I'm so busy. My goal is to just kind of hand this off and that it's happening while I'm doing other things. So what you're explaining is, I'm just playing the devil's advocate because I think that it's challenging to do this. But what you're saying is that not only do they have to invest in your marketing agency, but also they have to invest like almost 20 hours of like in the first meeting you have, let's say 10 people present, all of them for 8 hours. Then you're gonna have another 8 hours of just, one person per hour, but that's a lot of time to invest in it. And how do you justify that to the CEO who just wants to get marketing done?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And it's absolutely, it's pushback that we've seen over the years. But, like I sort of said at the beginning here, I've been running this agency since 2006. We've been doing content marketing on behalf of our clients at this point for probably 8+ years. And from my personal experience, I'm not saying this applies to everybody everywhere, but trying to hire an agency to sort of for done for you content is a recipe for failure. And that's what I have seen. There are probably companies out there who have figured out how to do it and do it well. But from the way we've operated, it just comes down to the simple fact that the insights and expertise are in the brains of our clients' teams, not ours. We're experts in writing, in content strategy, in SEO. Digital marketing is our realm, and that's our area of expertise. Our clients are experts in, producing heavy equipment and, machinery that it works along some production line and deals with automation. And I mean, that is their world. And so it's hard for me to understand, how can you try to, figure out what's all the stuff that's in their brain on your own without going directly to the source. Yeah, you can do some of it through research, but is that information just going to be too shallow to really resonate with the buyer on the other end? And from my experience, the answer is yes. But again, I'm one person talking here. So
I think that your experience is right. I mean, there's just so much content out there that's, you read it for 2 seconds and you see that this person is just summarizing what they found on Google. They didn't even go deeper than the second page. It's just all the same thing over and over and over again. So I imagine, I know you guys have an SEO strategy, you do implement that, but also with the other things that you were saying, paid ads, outbound, sending it by email. But what if you have this meeting and so much of the content is just not really suitable for search, for SEO? Because that does happen. Sometimes I've been interviewing clients and I'm like, yo, that's such a great topic and that's so valuable to your customers. But that's just not going to work on SEO because people aren't searching for that. Either they don't know how to express it, or those kind of people aren't searching to solve these problems via Google.
I really love the question because it's something we've grappled with over the years for sure. And it was probably about 4 or 5 years ago when I actually personally was really struggling with that, because I can think of a few clients in particular that I wish I could go back in time and completely approach it completely differently with them, because the reality was, they were, maybe a manufacturing organization that was in a tight niche. They had a very specific type of buyer, but there might have only been 100 or 200 potential customers out there in their whole total addressable market. And when that's the case, how much good is SEO going to do for you? Probably not much. One, you sell a very niche thing that's very specific to a specific type of person. And not only I guess what I'm getting at is that there aren't very many people out there looking for that thing. The ones who are are somewhat likely to find you. So I think that's one scenario where SEO just doesn't make sense, because there aren't enough buyers out there who would be even looking for this thing. Another scenario is you're a small player, you're small fish, big pond type of situation where there's so much competition, maybe physical competition for companies who look like you, but also sort of people competing for the attention of your audience. It could be trade organizations, people in tangential, industries, and your chance of actually ranking for something is so small, especially if you're a small company. Inbound is like, the inbound success curve is like this, where it might start turning up after 3 years or more of just pumping energy and time into doing SEO work. It's there's no magic switch that you flip and overnight, all of a sudden you're ranking up here, unless you're probably doing a bunch of shady stuff that is just going to hurt you in the long term anyway. So sort of the way we've helped our clients evolve their strategies over the years is you have to look at what can realistically be achieved with SEO. And you have to figure out how to backfill that curve. If it's going to look like this, well, how do you backfill all of this with marketing activity that's going to drive results more quickly? And the answer to that in a lot of cases is it's outbound. It's pairing outbound with inbound. It's saying, okay, all the people who are out there looking and maybe aren't going to find us yet, or who maybe aren't out there looking yet, but our content can help them if we can deliver it to them. Well, let's find those people and deliver that content directly through them in an outbound campaign. And then let's amplify the reach of the content that we're producing for SEO by using paid social to target people who fit that description of who we're trying to reach. So I think those are kind of the answers there. You can't rely. Inbound is a long-term strategy in most cases, and it's a game you should be playing, but you have to set realistic expectations about how fast you're going to get to results, as opposed to just crossing your fingers saying I'm going to publish a bunch of content and I hope it starts ranking, because if it doesn't, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Could you clarify a little bit more what you mean with your outbound distribution? You email a piece of content, you have a network, and you say, hey, can you distribute this with your network? Or what does that look like? It's influencer outreach?
That could be one way to do it. It wasn't what I was specifically referring to, but it certainly can be. And one way to sort of distribute content when maybe your website has low domain authority, or you don't have a huge traffic base already, is you could leverage your relationships with industry sources. We'll publish content. I wrote a few weeks ago for Industry Today. I wrote for Industrial Sage. These are industry organizations or publications that we have common audiences, and I can provide valuable content there as sort of a guest author. And now I reach their much bigger audience and provide them something of value to offer their audience. So that could be one way to do it. It could be working with partners who you promote their content, they promote yours, because you have a common audience and complementary skill sets. But what I'm referring to more than anything is sort of this fusion of sales prospecting and marketing, where if you have a sales team that's already doing cold outreach, through phone calls, through outbound email, where they're building a list of the right people from the right companies and they are doing cold outreach to them. Well, can you sort of flip that process on its head? And as opposed to sending these, hey, I'm Joe from Guerrilla and these are all the things I do. And how about if we have a conversation and, 1 in every 10 of those gets marked as spam, 8 out of 10 get ignored, 1 out of 10 maybe gets read, and 1 out of 200 gets a reply. can you take a different approach and help arm your sales team with helpful content where you can instead, in your outbound emails, say, a lot of people who we talk to that, maybe have your job title from this type of company struggle with this, and this. We just wrote this guide that sort of addresses objectively how to deal with those things. Here's a link to that guide. If it would ever be helpful to have a conversation, I'd love to talk. There's a message that's going to be much more well received, and you can deliver that to somebody, and you're not going to get marked as spam because you're doing nothing but helping as opposed to trying to sell.
Okay, I love that. What are the stats on that? How much better does that perform than cold outreach for
the stats? The stats, I don't know. Offhand, I can tell you from my own experience, because this is how we have done outbound at Guerrilla. And ever since we made that shift probably a year ago or so, the response rate has skyrocketed. We have people replying, just saying, thanks for sending me this. I'm like, sure, it was an outbound email, but you're welcome. It leads to people being more open to connecting on LinkedIn and being able to be in front of them that way going forward. I can't sit here and rattle off stats about that versus a traditional approach, probably because we haven't done the traditional sales approach ourselves. We haven't ever been big, cold emailers, but this strategy is something we're starting to try to figure out how to apply to our clients who are, not marketing people where this comes naturally, but they're technical B2B manufacturers, but they can still do the same thing. They can offer actual insights and helpful advice to their customers as opposed to just trying to book sales calls. So thus far, I think we're still in beta mode, but all the signs point to this being a much more positive approach. And if you think about why, it makes sense, right? People are receptive to receiving information that is actually helpful in nature, as opposed to you just sort of yelling at them about why they should buy something from you when you don't even know if they're a buyer in the first place.
I love that. So you get your clients, you encourage them to do the same thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're right now we have a handful of clients and we're helping them facilitate this exact same process of converting and this is where the idea of marketing sales alignment or sales enablement becomes so important, because you need marketing and sales on the same page about who you're trying to reach, what those people care about, what message needs to be delivered, because you don't want sales sending out these your sales team sending out these hard sell cold emails, and then marketing trying to hit the same people with this sort of giving message and providing helpful content. You want to be arming your sales team with, I think that's marketing's job, to help extract the information from your experts, figure out how to create content out of that, and then arm your sales team with that content and help them figure out the right way to deliver that to the right people directly.
Well, Joe, this has been inspirational and a very nice chat. So much value in that. I'm gonna close it there. We've been chatting for half an hour now. Thank you so much. I don't know, what's the best way for people to connect with you? I guess LinkedIn, that's where I found you.
Yeah, LinkedIn's great. You can find me there. Or you can, I always direct people to my website's Learning Center. So guerrilla76.com/learn. We publish purely educational content like we've been talking about today. Every Monday morning, something goes live there, and our newsletter, you can find that there. That goes out every 2 weeks. So that's probably where I direct you.
I'm on your newsletter, and I always enjoy receiving your newsletters. So
thank you. Good to hear it.
Thank you so much for that. And that was great. See ya.
Thanks for having me, Meba.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Flying Cat Marketing Series. If you enjoyed this interview, please give it a like, share it with your friends and colleagues, and subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned, because next week I'll be interviewing another leader in the SaaS and startup world, talking about their challenges and achievements. See you there.